Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm
Lis-
fine, I'm fine.
Lisalat is an incredibly cool name.
Thanks. Most of the people say it's an incredible difficult name.
Is
Uh,
it?
yeah, well,
did,
yeah,
I,
well,
did I pronounce it right? Lisalat.
yeah,
Is that
yeah, it's correct. Yeah, yeah.
okay? Are you French?
No, I'm Belgian, so it's
Oh,
close.
okay.
It's
Right on.
yeah.
I just decided here in late pandemic to start learning French. So I've been just the past 30 days I've been taking French classes. Not not very well at speaking it yet, but
Well, it's a
I
difficult
felt like
language,
it
right?
started to. I just felt like I was just all I was doing was looking at the news and Twitter and I was like, I need to be like productive with my time. So
And
yeah,
not in a positive way.
in a positive way. Like even if it doesn't work, even if I don't wind up learning this language, like just to feel like if I'm staring at my phone, I'm doing something that might be like cognitively useful.
Yeah. Well, you did something useful. I mean, you released a movie, so
Yeah,
I mean, that's pretty useful.
it has some use to some people. I hope. Yeah.
Yeah, well, before we start about Archenemy, I just want to congratulate on Daniel Isn't Real, your previous
Thank
one. I
thank
really
you.
like the movie, so I
Cool,
really,
cool,
yeah,
cool.
it was a very
Did you
nice
see
one.
it at a festival, or did you see it when it came out on video? Or
Well, I
home?
saw it during a press screening, so
Okay,
for the journalists. So yeah, that was
yeah, yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Cool. Right on. Yeah.
So yeah, about Archenemy, where did the story come from for the movie?
Well, I have always loved superheroes in comic books, right? And like I was thinking about how back in the 80s they started to really fuck with superheroes. Like to understand them as stories that were that superheroes are a mythology or a collection of characters, not a genre. And they would do in comic books they started to really play with the aesthetics of them because they treated the audience in a very sophisticated way. Like you all know what superheroes are, so now we can. And so when I started thinking about Archenemy, it was back in 2015. It was before I had shot Daniel Isn't Real Yet, and I was thinking like, well, I think now we're so saturated with superheroes in movies that maybe we can treat the movie audience in the same sort of sophisticated way, where we say, okay, you guys know what a superhero is, and now we can just, what would it be like if we used a different kind of aesthetic or a different kind of approach to these characters? And then, thinking about a guy in a tattered cape in a bar drinking whiskey talking about being a superhero, but nobody believes him. And I like that idea of, existing in a movie world where people know what superheroes are, but don't care or don't believe in them, or, sort of having that meta fictional relationship. And it expanded from there. I think, it's probably something that where I initially was expecting to do something more quietly dramatic and realistic, but then I cannot help myself from immediately starting to apply cosmic ideas and black holes.
And making a whole movie.
Yeah, and making a whole movie, not just a guy sitting in a bar for 2 hours.
Yeah. And so was that also the reason that you guys went for the comic vibe and the animation and also the real life footage?
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that those two aspects of the movie felt really different. And so there was sort of a struggle for a while about figuring out exactly what that would be. Like I think maybe at one point writing the script, I was even thinking like, oh, these superhero parts on Chromium should be live action and really big and full of effects, and they should be like the Matrix, and then the real world would be kind of just like shitty and lo-fi. And there were a number of reasons why that didn't work. One being that we did not have the Matrix budget, and the other being that simply that I realized that I didn't want them to feel real. Like I didn't want you to look at those things and immediately think, well, I'm seeing it in perfect clarity, so therefore they're real. Like I wanted to avoid clarity. I was like anti-clarity, and so finding this way of having them be animated and trying to make them animated in the way that was the most impressionistic and the least detailed, and sort of like try to push an emotional vibrancy instead of here's exactly what happened became, sort of the goal. And like if Who Framed Roger Rabbit was Pink Floyd The Wall, was this like ridiculous way of thinking about it.
Okay, yeah. Don't want to think about it too much, but yeah. I think it's a good way to describe it. So yeah, about the cast, how did you come across, because they're like all amazing, so how did you come across all of them?
I know we were really lucky with the cast, and this was this was one of the joys, sort of one of the blessings of having made Daniel Isn't Real, having made a movie that people liked. Now there are actors who say, oh, I want to do a movie like that, and so we went out and we showed Joe Manganiello, and we showed Glenn Howerton, my previous movie, and with Joe is perfect for me because he's a guy, he's like the most handsome man on the planet. He's just like this gorgeous, Superman looking guy, but he also really wants to not be known sort of for his looks and his body. He wants to be acting, and he used to do, Tennessee Williams plays and things. So when I approached him, like, you're a guy who kind of wants to be Superman, but actually you're just all fucked up and disgusting. This was like perfect idea for him, right? And so, and he loves comic books. And so we'd talk, you go to his house and it's just all, comic books on the bookshelf and Dungeons and Dragons. He's obsessed. He's fun. He's like this, total geek trapped in the body of like a superstar football player. It's a really interesting, sort of human being. So he really understood like how this was the perfect kind of thing for him. And same with everybody else in the cat, these people like, Paul Scheer, who, he's just in this one crazy scene where he's wearing red underwear and he's playing Russian roulette. He saw Daniel Isn't Real at South by Southwest, and he came up to me and said, I love that movie. And I said, I gotta put you in my movie, man. And it kind of went down like that. It was, I've always wanted to work with Amy Simons. I've wanted to work with her since I saw her in A Horrible Way to Die. And I probably always, every time I've made a movie, I've like, how can I put Amy Simons into it? And it's now only, having made a cool movie that I could show her. And she goes, oh, okay, yeah, I'll work with you. You've made a cool movie. And with the younger cast, with Indigo and Hamster, that was more the process of, I auditioned lots of people. And when I found them, auditioning them together to make sure that they felt like they really were a brother and sister. And then, I think one of the things that was really fun for me about this movie was that it is this sort of ensemble. There's like, 6 or 7 characters. They're all these cool actors. They all say weird things and dress crazy. And so, sort of getting them together and rehearsing with all of them and playing around with who these characters are. Mm-hmm. I think every single person in the movie really enjoyed the idea of playing these characters and sort of existing in this weird universe together.
Yeah, the way you tell it, it's like has been a lot of fun on set. I mean, I can just hear that everyone, must have like all the superheroes and everything like that, like all nerds together.
Yeah, I bought everybody in the movie a copy of All-Star Superman, which is a graphic novel by Grant Morrison. It's one of my favorite superhero stories. And I said, all right, everybody, like, we're making a movie. It's nothing like this book, but this book is like sort of the ideal of perfection, and we're gonna make the ugly version.
It's very nice. So what was the hardest scene to shot in this movie?
Well, there's, these sequences of action in the movie had wanted to make sure that they were all done in a certain way, there's a scene where Max breaks through the door of an apartment and he beats these 2 guys to death with his fists. And that kind of action had to feel different than, he goes into this room and he's got a gun and he's fighting in slow motion against this other person. And like, to me, the idea is every scene of action and violence in the movie has to have its own sort of story vibe, its own emotional reason, or so that it's not simply a collection of action and it's like the same thing. So that forces me into a place where then it has to be done a very certain way. So this scene, he breaks through the door and he kicks these guys, stomps on them. I wanted to make sure we only see his face. Like the camera is just on his face. He comes in, it's his face. Now it's a close up and he's punching and he turns around and we cut and it's his face again. And makes it such a specific way to shoot it. You can't fuck around. You can't just wave the camera around. and hope you see a guy getting kicked. But we had such a little time to shoot it, and we rehearsed it, and we were ready, and we shot it, and he smashes through in the background, a guy smashes through a coffee table, and there's blood and punching, and it's all great. And then the camera didn't work. We had played the whole scene, and the camera didn't work.
Oh no.
And we'd only had one coffee table, and so the art department was literally gluing pieces of glass and wood back together again so we could shoot it again the next morning. Like, we just moved on, shot other stuff. The next morning we came and did the same thing again, and it worked beautifully. But that kind of, trying to be so precise or have like a very specific idea and then having such little time and money to do it is, it makes you upset feeling.
Well, yeah, I can't imagine, but I think it must have been like pretty like, yeah, hard when the camera didn't work and when you guys.
Yeah. So those kind of things were really quite difficult. And I'm always trying to make sure that I will act, that my demeanor to the actors will be that we all have all the time in the world. Because they have to feel relaxed and explore. And, Amy Seimetz, such an amazing actress that she does a line, and then I want to see how she'll do it again a little bit differently. But you don't have that much time. So, this weird thing where in the back of your head, you've got all the crew and the producers and everything and all the money, and it's trying to eat you. It's trying to eat your brain. And then you're facing these two actors being like, so yeah, that's a really beautiful idea. It reminds me of a time when keeping those two kinds of like inner dialogues going at once is, I guess that boils down to what the job is really, like trying to act calm when you're losing your mind. I mean, there's a scenes in the movie where somebody got very sick, got pneumonia. Maybe he got COVID and we didn't know it. He got pneumonia, and I had to wake up at 4 a.m. and completely rewrite the script sometimes because somebody wasn't going to show up, and now we had to do a completely different scene. But I actually found that was wonderful. Like, I loved doing that because it meant we were sort of showing up and then saying, "Oh, what should we do today?" And it's this kind of filmmaking that's it lets things become organic. Lets things sort of be lifelike. And I actually really enjoyed that because I love, my favorite filmmaker is Wong Kar-wai. And as far as I can understand, he just shows up in the morning and says, "Oh, I don't know, we're in this cool restaurant. Like, what scene will we do here?" And, I've always wanted to be able to work like that. So the great adversity gave me the opportunity to kind of be more playful sometimes.
Are there like...
It was still miserable, just to be clear. It was fucking miserable.
Are there like scenes in the movie now that weren't in like the first script when you started?
Yeah, which scenes? I mean,
yeah.
Are you asking? Yeah. Well, there's this beautiful scene. I love this scene where Glenn Howerton and Amy Seimetz are sitting in a car together and talking. And that was not originally in the script. That was something that came up while we were shooting. That appeared, and someone was like, "Oh, this is a great idea," and he's gonna say things that Indigo had said to him, but now he's saying it to his boss, and then she gets the opportunity to talk about her relationship with Max. And it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, but I hadn't written that until we were in the middle of making the movie. Because the ideas, you start to realize, even while you're making the movie, what it's really about and what its strengths are. And no matter what, you have to find a way to adapt to that. Even if you have only, 18 days to shoot it and you're running as fast as you can, you still have to be able to be like, what would be cool here?
Mm-hmm. And how do you sell that to like producers or actors when you go, maybe we can like try this or this today, just something totally different?
Well, the actors like it, and the producers, I think, in this situation, I mean, in some ways it was saving the day because we'd have so many things go wrong that if I could come up with, well, why don't we try this? Then it was a positive. Okay. There's like sequences in the movie where Max and Hamster are walking through the city and they're talking, and first they're walking here, they're under a bridge, now it's nighttime, they're over here, and that was in the script as they'll have this conversation, but it'll sort of be in multiple places and multiple times, and everybody would look at that script being like, how the fuck are we going to do this? We barely have time to just go one place and shoot this. But I just kind of kept on it, and every time we were in a new location, I'd be like, okay, say these 3 lines from that scene, and we'll be able, we're on the rooftop, we've got an extra 15 minutes on the rooftop, say that thing right here, you just find the time and you force it to happen.
Nice. Well, sounds good, sounds hectic, but yeah.
Yeah, it gives us energy,
Yes. So where did your passion for filmmaking come from, actually? You already mentioned some heroes of yours and some comic love.
I think, I wonder if filmmaking came for me because I was an only child, and I spent all of my time as a kid just with piles of like action figures and dolls and things, setting up whole story sequences, and then telling my mom and dad to come in and say, and then tell them what was happening. I guess that was my first experience being a filmmaker. And then growing up to realize, oh, this would be even more fun if it, instead of action figures, it's like dozens of other human beings that I can talk to who will give me feedback and make it better and interesting. I remember when I was a kid, I would go to the video store and I would rent everything in the science fiction section, every movie about robots and the Terminator and stuff. And somebody at the store that I went to, they had put Tarkovsky's Stalker in the science fiction section. And it was just, I remember seeing that when I was fairly young, and it was so strange and so mind blowing that I was like, what is a movie? Like, this is amazing. And I think that's around the same time that I saw the movie Repo Man, which was, it's like sort of a gritty punk rock realism, but then also flying cars and just like this idea that you could combine all of these things into a movie has always sort of like made this impact on me, wanting to do things where genre is very liquid and it's not necessarily clear what kind of movie it is, or I can say it's one kind of movie, but it's really about something else, and sort of using the fact that we all know what genre is to put us together and do something unexpected. I think that's maybe my hope all the time. And so all the, filmmaking, people like Nicholas Refn, I think, do that. His movies, like, they suggest that it's a genre, but then he does other, David Lynch does it too. It's like, is this a mystery? Is this a noir? Is it a horror movie? Oh, it's actually about trauma. Or it's, I love these kind of filmmakers who use things that feel like a genre, but maybe it's actually something else.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing about film. You just don't know what you can expect most of the time. So,
yeah, hopefully, yeah.
So if you would have like a superpower, what would you like to have?
Oh, probably time travel, because I'm so curious.
To a specific area, or?
Well, hopefully I could bop around, right? Because I'd love to see, like, what are we going to be like in 500 years? But I don't want to be trapped there. So I don't want to come back and then, be like, oh my God, what were the ancient Egyptians really like? Like, did they really like cats as much as we think they did? Like, I'd love to just like to be able to sort of explore time and space. I think that would be the most glorious.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I just got one last question. Do you already have like other films coming up or working on?
Yeah, so I wrote a movie with Brian, who wrote Daniel Isn't Real with me. We wrote a movie that is it's kind of like a very fast-paced, action-y horror movie that's set in the present day, but it attempts to tell a story that connects the idea of witchcraft with capitalism, and specifically about how the witch trials in Europe in the 1600s were a counter-revolutionary measure that led to the creation of capitalism, and that how that kind of like sensibility is inherent in the society we live in now, and how that's connected to what money is. And while that all sounds very abstract in history, like this is a movie, it's just two sisters like on the run and monsters, and it's fucking insane. But that bit, I read lots of books about that, sort of the history of witchcraft and the witch trials, and was really sort of like horrified and amazed by the kind of foundation they were laying to what we consider modern society. And I wanted to tell that story in a very it's a horrific story. So that's something that we're hoping to shoot this year if we're lucky.
Okay, well, fingers crossed you're lucky.
Yeah, thanks.
Do you already have like a cast or some cast members?
No, nothing at all. Just a script and a dream.
Okay, well, that's a pretty good start.
Start.
Okay. Yeah, well, those were actually all my questions I had for you.
Okay, great. Well, it was really lovely talking to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for your time as well. And good luck with the shooting.
Thanks,
Okay,
man. All right,
thank you.
take
Bye.
care.
I used to sit on top of the highest buildings in Chromium. I looked down like a god.
You still got them superpowers? The power to drink a fifth of whiskey and not pay for it.
Dad was a storyteller.
See? It's in our blood.
I used to punch holes through space-time.
Hey! Oh, you're the dude who says he's from another planet. You got superpowers, right? Come on, I just want to hear your story.
My city was named Chromium.
So that's where you're from?
They had to invent things to hurt me. Intelligent asteroids, killer robots.
Super villains?
Say super one more time.
Oh, okay.
Even the whiskey's weaker here.
Space whiskey. All right, look, do you have any superpowers at all? Or...
The source of my power doesn't exist here.
Why you gotta fill the kid's head with bullshit?
I've always been good to you, right? To you and your family.
You're risking our lives to hang out with some homeless man?
Max didn't have to do any of this to help us.
They will find you and they will kill you.
So what are we supposed to do?
You fight the war.
Fuck. Get Max Fist.
We're gonna play a game!
Where's my brother?
You look insane.